we've started. Okie dokie. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Friday session of the Food for Thought campaign with Tom Barnes, who is this morning very bravely going to be cooking mac and cheese live as we ask him some questions about his career. So, I'm going to hand over to you now, Tom. Over to you.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to make mac and cheese. So obviously we need to make the cheese sauce. So the base of any cheese sauce is something that we call a roux. So it's equal parts flour and butter. So I'm just going to put 50 grams of butter into a pan and melt that down. It's important not to have your pan too hot because the butter will burn quite quickly, so you just want to melt it at this stage.
Is this one of your favourite meals to cook, maybe?
Yeah, I do like it. Yeah, it's especially when the weather's quite cold and miserable outside. It's quite a nice, comforting thing to make. It's also very, very simple.
That's a good one for today when it's cold. So, Tom, whilst you're just making that sauce there, can you maybe tell us a little bit about how it was at school for you? What did you study at school or college? Did it lead to your career that you're in at the moment?
Not really. I wasn't very good at school, to be honest. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I got bored quite easily, and I didn't find anything that really sort of interested me. So my mind would just switch off, and I would sort of mess around, and not. I wasn't a very good student, if I'm honest. So yeah, school wasn't it wasn't really my favourite thing, if I'm being totally honest. It was only when I got to work in a kitchen that I realised that I found something that I really enjoyed doing and actually wanted to learn about and sort of applied myself properly for the first time. That was when I got a job in a kitchen.
So was that like a part-time job as?
I started on a Saturday morning working at a little sort of local restaurant, and from there, that restaurant had a larger hotel that was also connected to it, where I got a full-time apprenticeship. So I actually did a breakfast shift in the morning, and then went into school and did my maths GCSEs. So so I was kind of already in the kitchen by the time I'd left. By the time I was leaving school, and I had an idea that was what I wanted to do.
Right, and sorry, I just noticed then you put some more in
yeah, so all I've done now, the butter's been melted, and now we've added some flour. So it's equal parts. So now basically we just want to cook that out on quite a low heat, and it just gets rid of if you add your milk in too quickly, it'll just taste of raw flour. So you want to cook that out on a gentle heat for a few minutes, and then basically after that we'll add in a little bit of mustard and a little bit of garlic powder just for flavour, and then we'll just slowly start emulsifying in the milk, and then at the end we'll add the cheese, and then you've got your cheese sauce.
Somebody's just put in the chat there, is there an alternative to butter that you can use?
You could use a vegan butter, it would give the same effect. So yeah, like based with like an olive oil, but the problem is with that it's very strong in flavour, so it would taste more like olive oil than cheese probably. But yeah, you could try it with a vegan butter, and the flour would still emulsify it.
Right. Okay. So, well, we got back to a career. We're keeping jumping here. What are you doing in your terms of careers? You've obviously worked overseas as well. So I believe you worked in Belgium and Copenhagen. What was that like? How did that compare to working in the UK?
It was really great. I enjoyed it. I was in Belgium for 3 months. That was part of a prize for a competition that I'd done. So that was amazing. Like to see a different style of cuisine. Obviously living in a different country, different culture, and it was great. Belgium was like a really lovely place, and for me, not speaking any other languages. Luckily for me, everybody spoke English, so it made life quite easy. And the same in Copenhagen. Everybody speaks English out there, and Copenhagen was like they have an amazing way of life out there. They don't. It's just a very sort of chilled out city. was a lot of fun to be there. And when I was in Copenhagen, in the restaurant I worked at had people from, I think it was like 19 different countries all working in the same restaurant. So it was great to sort of like, speak to other people, learn about, their country and their cultures. And then every day off, the restaurant was shut for 2 days a week. So we'd all go out together and, hang out. And because like everybody was away from their families and their friends. So like it kind of became like a little family in the restaurant, which was really nice. So on your days off, there was always some cool things to do.
And did you notice if there was a difference in kind of like attitudes towards jobs and careers in the sectors in different countries?
I think kitchens over the world are quite similar because everybody travels around and it is hard work. Everybody worked really hard. But yeah, so I wouldn't say any difference really from it being in England, Belgium, Copenhagen. Everybody was the same, sort of working as hard as they can to try and produce the best food they possibly could.
Well, we've had a good question in the chat then. What was the favourite thing you ate when you lived in those countries?
The favourite thing I ate? Well, when I was in Belgium, they did a dessert which was, bear in mind that the restaurant had 3 Michelin stars, but it was really simple. It was sort of freshly churned vanilla ice cream. And then they would come out, bring it out on a trolley at the table, scoop it into your bowl, and then pour like hot chocolate sauce and crumble over it. And it was like the difference of like having the ice cream churned like straight away and eating it as soon as it's come out of the machine. And also they put like 2 different types of vanilla in it, so it was amazing. Something that really simple, but it was like so incredible when you ate it.
It's making us even more hungry. So how's everything going with the cheese sauce?
Yeah, okay, so the flour's cooked out. So next I'll just add in a little bit of mustard, which is just again for flavour. It's more of a seasoning really for the cheese. The sauce won't taste of mustard. But again, if the mustard wasn't in there, you would sort of know a difference. And then a little bit of garlic powder. Again, just a seasoning. Stir that in. So at this stage, this is what it should look like. So you've kind of got a paste, and then we'll start to add in the milk into that. So
we've had a question come in. If you could work in any restaurant in the world, which would it be? Obviously Longclume, but if it wasn't Longclume, anywhere else?
Well, if I was starting out again at the moment, there's 2. There's one in Sweden called Franzen, which I think looks absolutely incredible. And then the best meal I ever had was a restaurant in San Francisco called Benu, where the chef is Korean, and it's kind of a mixture of like Korean food, but then sort of paired with like classic French techniques, and it was an amazing meal. So yeah, Franzen in Sweden or Benu in San Francisco would be where I would go.
Fantastic. And someone else has put in the chat, have you travelled or cooked in the Middle East?
In the Middle East, we did an event recently in Abu Dhabi. So I was there for like 4 days, and that's the only time I've been.
Okay. So you're cooking mac and cheese for us this morning. You get to travel. You were in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago. What's a typical day like for you now as Tom Barnes, as chef? What are you doing in a day?
I'll just quickly start to cook the macaroni. It'll take about sort of 10 minutes. Just put that into some simmering water, and then add a good pinch of salt. It's like really important when you're cooking anything really, blanching anything. A good pinch of salt in there makes a massive difference. So a typical day for me. I start off. I always come to the village first, so I go into the Rogan and Company. I go into Longclume and check that all the guys are okay there, and then I'll either go up to Henrock, which is about 30 minutes away. If I'm not going up there, I'll give them a ring and just check what's happening, and then I'll be with the guys going through sort of new dishes, anything we've got coming up, and then I'll be doing service in one of the restaurants, lunch and dinner, depending on if any of the kitchens, like if the head chef's off, I'll probably go in and cover, or just whoever needs help really. So that's my basic day.
And do you find, is there any particular times of the year when it's like it's busier than others? So like at Christmas times, are there any kind of peak times?
Well, the summer up in the Lake District is always incredibly busy for us. So we, but I mean, we have a sort of quieter time around January, but then by the time sort of Easter comes in, like right through to the end of the year, we're always really busy. So it's, the summertime for us is really busy.
We've had a couple of questions, other things that have come in. So do you design your own dishes? So is that something you do during the day as well? Do you design your own dishes, and like where do you get your ideas and your inspiration from?
Yeah, so the restaurants I'll sit down with the head chefs and Simon for all the different restaurants, and that's how we go about it. So we come up with the dishes together, and we always sit down. We have a menu meeting normally once a week. We sort of discuss what's coming through at the farm, what's being grown, and then we go from there really. So yeah, every week we have a menu meeting, and I design the dishes for all the restaurants along with each restaurant's individual head chefs and Simon.
So you kind of geared by what's seasonal at the moment as well, and maybe just tell some of the people they might not know that about the farm that you have at Longclere. You grow your own.
Yeah, so we've got a farm which is about 2 miles away. So it grows all the produce, all the vegetables for all the restaurants. It's about 12 acres, so it's pretty incredible the amount of produce we have coming through. So that really sort of dictates what goes on the menu. Is we base everything around the farm. What we can use there. We try not to buy anything in, like vegetables wise. So everything's grown. So yeah, the farm's amazing, and it's great for the chefs as well. They can go up there, they spend a lot of time up there as well, sort of learning from John, our head grower, and learning about the importance of like where your produce comes from. You know, I think especially in the big cities, you become a little bit, you're not really attached to where you're getting stuff from. You know, you place an order on the phone, it turns up the next morning, but when you actually see how much sort of work goes into like growing the vegetables, and it makes a massive difference as well. Like if you're eating something that was picked a couple of hours ago to something that's been picked a few days ago, it is an absolutely huge difference. So.
Is there anything that you particularly grow that you look forward to? It's coming to season, and you've got like maybe a favourite recipe you like to do with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I love the springtime when like the peas and the broad beans and stuff like that starts to come through, because peas especially the peas that we get up at the farm, they're absolutely incredible. Like you don't even need to cook them; they're just so amazing. Like raw, they're like so soft and like juicy. And I think that around that time as well, we have a particular type of mint called calamine, which we make an oil from, and then we dress the peas in that, and it's so good. Like to serve that with maybe like a scallop or something like that. It's like stuff that you can't buy anywhere. You can't buy them in the shops, and I think people are very used to having like bags of frozen peas and stuff like that, but the peas that we grow at the farm, like I say, we'll pick them that morning, just pod them, serve them like a couple of hours later, and it's amazing. Like people can't understand like this. A lot of times say, "Oh, how do you get those flavors and stuff?" But a lot of the times it is just the fact that the raw ingredients so good to begin with. We don't have to do too much to it.
Could you put peas in the mac and cheese? Is that?
You could do if you wanted. I mean, I wouldn't, but the thing is, for me, peas need to be cooked very quickly. And when you start throwing them into something like this, which is like stewing, they'll start to go very soft and maybe a bit brown and mushy, and they're not that nice. Like for me, a pea should have a bit of texture to it, a bit of crunch. Otherwise, but I absolutely detest mushy peas. So like, yeah. So maybe that's why I wouldn't do it. Maybe that's why I don't like it.
And how's the cheese sauce going there? Are you adding the milk in?
Yeah, so we started adding the milk. So you just add it bit by bit. So it's I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to thicken up.
Is there a consistency that they need to look for when they're doing it?
Just so it can like sort of coat a spoon. So if you dip your spoon in and then let it drip off, if you can run your finger through it and it holds like that, then you start to get that. If you add your milk too quick, the sauce will be too thin.
Right.
So it's important to really whisk it in gradually. Otherwise, you end up with it'll just be like milk sort of consistency. The flour's got to cook out.
So, Tom, you were successful at winning the Roux Scholarship. So, could you tell people watching a little bit about that and kind of how it had an impact on your career? And obviously later, actually, at 11 o'clock today, we've got Alan Roux is doing a broadcast for us. So what is the Roux Scholarship, if people don't know?
Yeah, so the Roux Scholarship was set up by Michel Roux Senior and Alain Roux, who were, Albert Roux. So they were two brothers who came over to England and set up a restaurant called Le Gavroche. And the Gavroche is still going now. So they have their two sons now who run their restaurant. So you've got Alain, who runs the Waterside Inn. He was Michel Roux Senior's son. And then you've got Michel Roux Jr., who runs the Gavroche. He was Albert's son. So the two seniors, completely like legendary figures in our industry. They were the first chefs outside of France to ever win 3 Michelin stars for their restaurant in London. And they set up a restaurant in London in like the 60s when like food in England was just considered to be totally rubbish. Like, it was really bad. Like the whole world looked on England as just like, having appalling food. And they were the first people to really change that. And then like the amount of chefs that sort of went through their kitchens that they trained, Gordon Ramsay, for example, Marcus Waring, like all the sort of real big name chefs like that we see now, like most of them went through their kitchens. So they set up the Roux Scholarship as a way to start helping younger chefs in the UK. So the prize is a 3-month stage at like any 3 Michelin star restaurant in the world. So that was why I ended up going to Belgium after I won that. But yeah, so the scholarship's been coming up to like 40 years quite soon. It's a massive competition. It's quite difficult, because you don't know anything what you're going to do on the day. Like you're going completely blind, so you've got to sort of just piece your way through it on the day and try and hope that you're going to get a technique that you might be familiar with or something like
that. And we'll come back to the Roux Scholarship one, but there's a really good question coming from one of the students whilst you're making your cheese sauce, is how can you make your cheese sauce more cheesy, cheese in flavour, but not interfere with the texture?
To make it more cheesy?
Yeah. I like your thinking, whoever the student is.
Just add more cheese.
Would that not make it too thick or anything?
No, I think if you add it in gradually, you'll be all right. But then also, if it was starting to get too thick, you can also put more cheese on top. That's what I do. So once you've got your macaroni in there, we grate some cheese over the top as well.
So going back to the Roux Scholarship, then how did that impact? Because you were successful. How did that impact your career? Where did it take you from there? You mentioned that you were in Belgium.
Yeah, well, like I say, because it is such a sort of well-regarded competition, I got promoted. So I was the sous chef at Longclimb at the time. Off the back of that, I got made head chef, and like within the industry, everybody looks to it to see how I was doing. So it got my name out there a little bit, and then also just like having access to Michel Roux Senior and the whole family. They really do sort of treat you like a member of the family once you've won. There's been times where I've been a bit lost, didn't quite know what to do. When I was leaving Copenhagen, I wasn't sure what the next move was going to be. So I emailed Michel Roux Senior, who told me to come. So I went to his restaurant, he put me up, and we sat down for a day and chatted about different options. And like just, it's like, I don't know, a young footballer having access to Messi or whatever, you know what I mean? Like just like real legendary figures in the industry who you can call and ask upon for advice was like, that was the biggest thing for me. It's huge.
And it linked to, so for you, obviously it's led on, but I mean, a lot of our young people watching here today are still at high school. Roux Scholarship might be a little bit too far ahead of them for thinking about. We've had a question here from a student. Did you study or pick food technology at school, GCSE?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it wasn't very good though. It was when I was at school. Bear in mind, this was quite a long time ago, but it was more. I don't know. I didn't actually do that much cooking when I was at school. Like in food technology, there was made a few sandwiches and stuff like that. But again, it was nothing that like particularly sort of interested me. So yeah, I did do food technology at school, but I wasn't very good. Annoyingly, my girlfriend got a much better grade in food in her GCSE food than I did, and she's not a chef, so she holds that one over me quite a lot. So just with the cheese sauce, so now we've got the sort of consistency we were after, and now basically we're just going to add the cheese, let that melt in, let it emulsify.
Someone's put in the chat, what's your opinion on adding bacon into mac and cheese?
Yeah, I like it. I've got some different toppings to add in later, and yeah, I really like a bit of crispy bacon on the top. It's
nice, fantastic. Well, okay. So if you weren't maybe a fan of food technology at school, and it wasn't the best, what was it then that made you want to become a chef?
Well, I had enjoyed cooking. Started a little bit with just my grandma in the kitchen making cakes and stuff, and then I did do some cooking at school, obviously, and it was the first time that I remember like getting like compliments from like my granddad, for example. Like he was quite a fussy eater, but then he enjoyed the stuff I was making, and like yeah, I like that feeling really of I was getting compliments for something I'd done, and yeah, it just sort of grew from there. But that was just like an interest that made me think. And my mum had seen this an article in the paper like about the Saturday job in the kitchen, so I applied, and then as soon as I started, I loved it. And it was like the first time, so like I say, I wasn't very good at school. I didn't really apply myself, so I was always bottom of the class. But then I would go in and someone would show me how to do something, and like I would start to do it like almost better than they did. Like straight away, I picked it up really quickly, and it was the first time I felt like I was actually quite good at something. So that was yeah, and then it just grew from there really. Like I got quite obsessed with it. I really loved doing it, and I would go in early, I would finish late, I would come in on my day off, and just to help out, and just because I really love doing it, like more than anything.
We've got a really good question here from one of the schools. So it says, our pupils have their practical GCSE cooking exam next week. Do you have any tips for them? They've got to cook a 2-course meal.
2-course meal. Just keep it simple. Don't overdo it. I'm a big believer in doing a few things really well and trying to do a load of stuff badly. So yeah, keep it simple. Pick something that you want to eat, that you enjoy. You can only work to that. That's all I've ever done. Don't try and think of what other people might like. Cook something that you like, what you find tasty, and just keep it simple and just do the best you can.
They could maybe do the mac and cheese.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Hey, you could say you're cooking Tom Barnes mac and cheese, and then how could anybody say it's not going to be good enough? That's fantastic. So moving on then. So you were inspired, like you say, you were cooking with your grandma, you were getting that praise from it. What would you say networks out there? What's the support like for young people now wanting to get involved in catering or hospitality? What would you recommend they do?
I think there's lots of opportunities now. Like it's been quite sort of well known that the kitchens have struggled a little bit to get staff. So, but there's loads of great opportunities out there that people are doing to try and combat that. Like we've started our own academy, so the Simon Rogan Academy, which is, for me, I would absolutely, if I was coming out of school, I would have loved to have had something like this available to me, where you get to get sent to college one day a week to get your qualifications, and then you get to spend 6 months in every kitchen. So, you're getting an opportunity to work in a 3 Michelin-starred restaurant coming straight out of school, which is it's pretty unheard of, to be honest. And then also getting to go up to the farm, working down at the unit as well, where we do our boxes. You've seen so many different aspects of the industry, and with the support of all the chefs that we have here and stuff, it's such a great opportunity. So I would, that's the sort of thing I'd recommend. Look for an apprenticeship, find something that you want to do, like the style of food that you're interested in, and then just try and get involved with something like that, and keep your head down and just learn as much as you can. Try and absorb it all in.
What would you say was your style? What would you say was your style of food?
Well, obviously we use like purely British ingredients, but we use a lot of the sort of preserving technique, like that Nordic style of preserving, so that we've still got like plenty of ingredients to use through the winter. We use like different Japanese techniques as well, like we'll make misos and stuff like that, but we do it all from our own vegetables from the farm. So yeah, we're a bit of a sort of mashup really of different styles, and obviously there's some classic French in there as well. And I think like bringing all those together in our own way, using our own ingredients, is what sort of makes this restaurant quite unique.
I know it's one of the schools has just said is obviously the young people watching today are from all across the country. If the academy is a long way away for them, is there any help to pay for travel or places to stay or alternatives that might be in different parts of the country?
Well, obviously, if we come up here, we offer out accommodation and stuff like that. So that's like people won't be commuting. We're in quite a remote area, so we have staff accommodation around. And then like traveling to the restaurants, like we have a really good team and people help each other out. You know, like we have a restaurant up at Henrock in Bowness where it's a bit further out, but you know people always give each other's lifts and stuff like that. And it's just the team here is really nice. So like everybody helps each other out. You know, we have people who don't drive up here, and like I say, it's quite remote, but nobody ever struggles because everyone just jump in the car with someone else.
Fab. And so it's a friendly group.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the main things we look for is like when someone's coming for a job interview, you know, a massive part of it is do we think they're going to fit into the team, and if someone comes in with like a bad attitude or just seem like they might sort of cause a bit of trouble, then we just wouldn't offer them a job. You know, it's like more so that than how they can cook. Like, you know, we can teach people the skills they need, but attitude should be there from the beginning.
And do you think, would you recommend like there's certain maybe attitudes or skills that you would be looking for? So if young people do have interviews for things, what is it, that teamwork, what types of skills?
Teamwork, listening to the, you know, the senior guys, trying to help out, and, you know, showing a willingness to want to learn. Like, you know, once you finish the job, if you finish and there's sort of no one there, go and ask somebody, right, what can I do next? You know, like there's nothing worse than when you're looking for someone for a job and you see someone sort of just stood there, just waiting around. But like, you know, like be proactive, you know, don't be scared. Like everybody's like super approachable, and and ask questions. You know, people like it when you ask, like, you know, if someone tells you, oh, can you chop this onion for me, for example, like, yeah, what's this for? Do you know what I mean? And then ask like the process behind it and why you're doing these things, and you know that will benefit you because you'll learn quicker. But also it shows to the chefs who are interviewing you, like, oh, like they're really interested. This is good, you know, and just help out, and just the more you sort of give to the guys above you, the senior chefs, the more you'll get back because they'll want to help you out and teach you things and show you more things. If they feel you're interested, everybody's like really passionate about training. You know, they'll want to give back to you. But if people feel like, oh, this person doesn't really care, then it gets to a point where you feel like, okay, I'm not. You know, you're just naturally not going to spend that much time with someone. So just you know, be enthusiastic, try and help out, and just ask questions. Like, just show a willingness to learn. Is it, you know, just like I say, the skills will come with time. That's fine, and we don't ever expect miracles from like our apprentices, you know. But just a willingness to learn is everything. Attitude is everything.
Yeah, it's that learning curve, isn't it? Thank you. How's mac and cheese going?
Yeah, so the cheese sauce is pretty much there. So it's like a nice sort of coating consistency now. So the pasta's cooked, so I'll just drain this off. Yeah, so we've got the pasta in there, and then we'll just add some of the cheese in to coat it, the cheese sauce.
Oh, I'm sure everyone watching that is making me so hungry. Any questions? Remember, keep them coming for Tom. It could be about the mac and cheese. It could be about the career journey. So keep them coming. Keep them coming. And then you just mix in that Do you add it all at once, or are you adding?
Yeah, so I just add it in to coat it really, and then there's the sauce is quite thick. So then when you add like that little bit of pasta water, just like from the end, it helps bring it all together and emulsify it from like the starch from the pasta, which is drained. That's just like the same if you're making like any sort of pasta. Really, you should always keep a little bit of the cooking water and add it back into the sauce, and it just helps like emulsify everything together.
Ah, so you didn't drain it completely. There was still.
No, never completely. Always keep a little bit of the water back, and it just helps like exactly, just coat the pasta nicely. So then after that, we'll just taste it for seasoning. Always. Just add a little bit more salt.
Wish we had like smelly vision. We could.
So yeah, I mean that as it is really delicious, but I always like to add a few bits on top. So it's like alcohol.
Someone's asked, would you put chili flakes in mac and cheese?
Yeah, I mean I love it with like jalapenos chopped through, because like the creaminess and the sort of cheesiness of the sauce works actually really well with chili. So like chilies, jalapenos, chili flakes, anything like that. If you were to do chili flakes, I would maybe do them at the start, like when you were adding the flour and the butter, so it cooks out a little bit, so it's not quite so harsh. But yeah, so then we'll just go in the bowl some of our mac and cheese, and then say on top you can put whatever you want. So here I always add a little bit more cheese just to sort of, well, because I like cheese basically. So this is a little bit of parmesan I'm putting on, and then I've got some crispy bacon. So the bacon's just been fried off and then chopped, so it's like really crispy. The thing is, obviously, with the macaroni, it's quite soft and everything. So it's nice to add some crispy bits to add a little bit of texture. So these are just some little fried onions. And then I just like to add some chives because it has that sort of fresh flavour to it as well. Yeah, so that's it.
That's beautiful. I think we will call it that. I think we'll call that the food for thought mac and cheese. Definitely worthy of a GCSE exam practical. That's fantastic. And how long does that take? So if a young person now wanted after this session to go away and maybe have, like some of our chefs throughout the week have said, learn maybe 3 or 4 really good things that you like, and you get better and better and better. Somebody wanted to do that and make mac and cheese their signature dish, and they wanted to go off. What would you recommend in terms of like where to buy the produce from, where to get it from? Because obviously the cost of living and the price of food. Is there any recommendations you could give young people for recreating that at home?
Yeah, I mean, basically just get a nice sort of strong cheddar cheese. You can get that from the supermarket. The supermarkets do great sort of selections of cheeses now. So just get like a nice quality cheddar cheese, and then any, you can put any ingredients in that you like, really. Sort of just think about like the textures of it. So something like a little bit crispy is always really nice. Think about sort of what flavors go with cheese. So like a little bit of onion in there is always nice. And you can, if you want to add different sort of things into the sauce, you can experiment with that, and it's good fun to experiment and just try your own things, really. But it's quite a basic recipe that you can tweak to sort of however you want.
So it's one of the schools I just put. Did you follow your own recipe for this dish, or is it like a basic sauce? Or
yeah, so this is quite a basic recipe. Cheese sauce is like one of the sort of first things you'll learn to make in college. So the base of it is a bechamel. So that's the flour and the butter cooked together. That's called a roux. And then you add milk into that, and that's a bechamel, and that's like probably like one of the first sauces you'll learn to make in college. And then from that, you can make a cheese sauce. You can, it's quite a few sort of different things you can do with it.
So it might be, if anybody wants to go and having a look online, trying to find some different recipes for those, and just kind of, like you say, keep practicing, tweaking, altering, and adding things. And texture. So texture.
Yeah, texture. Yeah. And again, like just what you like. What flavors do you like? That's all we do in the restaurant. We cook the food we like. You can't please everybody, sadly. So, there's no point in thinking of, what do I think everyone's going to like? Because you're never going to do that. So what do I like? And I think if you're doing something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, then you're on the right track. You'll be okay.
Very specific question here. If you burn the butter, can you rescue it, or should you start again?
Yeah, sadly, you just have to start again on that one.
That sounds like somebody's struggled with this. That's a good piece of advice. So if you burn it, just start.
There's no way to bring it back. I mean, if it's starting to get too hot, if it's just before it's burnt, you can pull the pan off, take it out, and then add another knob of butter into it, and hopefully that'll stop it. Like, put it into a different pan, because the residual heat from a pan will keep cooking it. So if you pour it into a cool pan, you might be all right. But once it's burnt, once it's gone sort of past brown butter stage, you literally for a bechamel sauce, you just want to melt it. Otherwise, the sauce will be brown. And once the butter starts to separate, once it's going brown, the milk solids in it will separate from the actual butter, and then it'll be hard to re-emulsify it. You'll end up with lots of little sort of burnt bits throughout your sauce, and it'll just taste bitter.
And what would be your favourite meal to cook? Do you have a favourite meal on the long clue menu? It might be seasonal that you like to cook and you like to prepare.
I mean, well, on the menus, there's lots of dishes that we have. I mean, when I'm at home, I like to cook quite simply. I like pasta dishes, risotto, stuff that's quite hearty, or even like a nice salad's quite good. I mean, I'm quite bad for just cooking for myself. I eat a lot of Chinese takeaways because I could just never be bothered when I'm at home. But like, yeah, if I'm cooking for like me and my partner or whatever, then yes, like nice pasta dishes and stuff like that. I find them they're quite quick, they're simple, but you can get so much flavour into them, and they're quite satisfying to eat.
Yeah, and quite cheap and easy for young people to recreate as well, aren't they? They're quite.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't need a lot. I mean, even just pasta with like just a little bit of olive oil and some fresh herbs chopped through it. It's so tasty, delicious,
Well, I feel really bad not like letting anybody eat that mac and cheese. If you can send it first school to send their address, and here we can send it off to them to try and they can reheat. But if we just kind of go back into the career side of things, so obviously shown there there's obviously that passion, that determination for what you want to do, and it produces some beautiful food at the end. But is it all glamorous? Are there some pitfalls, any issues with the job and the role that you'd like kind of make young people aware of before they start?
Yeah, it's quite stressful. There's no getting around that, like in a high-end environment, especially in service. If you're in a service that's not going right, if you've not been set properly or whatever, it's not a nice. It's not when service is going well and everyone's loving it. It's such a great environment. But like on those days where it's not going well, and we do all still have them, it's quite a stressful time. I mean, hours is a thing, but it's getting much better now. Like here, You will be working in the evenings. That's the thing. You don't get your evenings off. The hours is not like when I started. I would do 80 hours a week. Now, we don't. The guys at the restaurants get 3.5 days off. But on those 3 days that they're working, they are long. They are long days, and you don't get your evenings off. If you're cooking someone's evening meal, you've got to work in the evening. So it's that sort of antisocial thing, which is it's getting much better now. But you will always be working in the evenings. So that's something to think about. But, on the whole, I think it's an amazing job. It's given me a lot, and, I love it. And I think it's the sort of job you have to love if you're going to get into it. You've got to want to do it. You've got to have like a real passion for it, because if you don't, I just don't think you'll stick with it.
And who is like the next steps for you? Is there anything? It's obviously always learning. Is there anything that you like to perfect or do better?
Well, like I say, we're always trying to every day. Like we look at dishes and we see what can we do better, and it's such a great job that you never do stop learning. I could just be flicking through social media and see something that will give me an idea, or I'm looking through a book and see a recipe and I think, that sounds really good, and then like you go off and you practice it, and you get to a point where like you start to teach yourself just through practicing and like trial and error and stuff, which is nice. Like when you start off, you look to the chefs with more experience and they teach you the basics, and then once you've got a grasp of that, you can start to play around with things, and like it's a lot of good fun. And it's nice as well, because you the days where you try to create something and you can't quite get it right, but then you sort of keep plugging away at it until eventually you're happy with it, and then you get to see customers and guests enjoying it. It's a really nice feeling.
There's a couple of great questions come up in the chat here about, they're all coming in now, lots and lots. So we'll go through some of these ones. So who was your mentor? Who would you look up to?
Well, I've had a few. I mean, I got very lucky with the apprenticeship that I did. I had a guy called Duncan Collins who was incredibly patient with me. I didn't know how to fry an egg when I started, and like 3 years later, I was going off to work in a 2 Michelin star kitchen. So he was a big inspiration for me, Duncan Collins. But then obviously Simon as well, Simon Rogan. I've worked for him for 12 years. So that's I'd say though. I mean, but I've worked with lots of great people over the way, and it's not just the head chefs. It's the sous chefs, it's the chef de parties. Like, there's been lots of people who've been very influential to me. But I'd say those two in particular, Duncan and Simon.
You just mentioned their sous chef, and you've mentioned other ones. Are there different? I'm sorry to now, different chef roles in the kitchen? That's explain to young people what the different roles are within a kitchen.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, like within our group, I'm the executive chef. So I oversee all the restaurants. Then every restaurant will have a head chef who runs the kitchen day to day. Underneath the head chef will be a sous chef who kind of steps into the head chef's role when the head chef's off. And then underneath that, you have a chef de partie. So they're in charge of their section. And then you have a demi chef de partie who runs the section on the chef de partie's day off. And then underneath that is a commis who's basically like the assistant to the chef de parties on the sections.
And as you can kind of work through those different.
Yeah, exactly. So I started off as a chef de partie.
Yeah. Are there different sectors, like the pastry section within kitchens, that you could go and work into as well?
Yeah, I mean, every kitchen's different, but like the basic sort of way they will work will be meat, fish, larder, pastry. Some sections will do like a sauce section where they'll cook all the meat and fish, and then they'll have the garnishes. But here at Longcliffe, we do meat section, fish section, larder, so they do the cold dishes, the snacks, and then obviously the pastry. And then you'll have your guys on the pass who plate everything up and check the quality's there.
We've had a few. I love this one. Where did you do your work experience when you were in high school? Where did you do work experience?
Yeah, Curry's in Barrow. Yeah.
So it was more. This is the great thing about what we're doing here, isn't it? That the young people, there's work experience, your traditional going out, but they've got the opportunity to kind of like watch you cook, ask questions directly as well.
There was nothing like that when I was at school. There was no option for that, so I just basically chose where was closest to my house, and there was a McDonald's over the road that I knew I could get my dinner at every day. So that's why I chose that. Really. That's sort of the level of thinking I used to put into things when I was at school.
But now you're working in a Michelin star restaurant, so there we go. So it works. It worked. Joking aside, though, but it is customer service, isn't it, to a degree? And when you were at Curry's, you would have had to deal with people. So it's that skill as well, isn't it, of managing and dealing with people is a good one to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's
right. This is a nice one here. What's your proudest achievement as a chef?
I always think of. Well, I've got a few that I struggle to put. Obviously, winning the Roux Scholarship was one. Getting to the banquet on Great British Menu was another. And then when Rogan and Company won its first Michelin star, and when Longcliffe won. Well, I was here when it won its second and its third, but the third especially was because there'd never been a restaurant in the north of England that had won 3 Michelin stars, and being from the north and like having my little part in that to play in that. For me, as a northerner, was brilliant.
And there's lots of questions coming in about what's your favourite ingredient to work with, or your favourite dish to prepare. I think is there anything that you do?
I love like again, I've sort of mentioned the springtime, but like asparagus and peas, and like when strawberry season starts, I love that. I love making desserts with strawberries. I think those are sort of ingredients. And then the shellfish as well, and the fish that we get. Like, I just think the stuff that we get in this country, those ingredients, they're better than anywhere in the world, and we should be sort of championing those ingredients and singing about them, and I really love working with them. I get excited because we really do work very seasonally. So we get a very short window to work with these things. So when the time starts coming around again, I get quite excited about it, and I'm happy to start coming up with dishes.
I think, Tom, what I'm about to read is the best ever question I've seen on one of these, and it is, how much gravy do you like on a roast dinner?
A lot.
Excellent.
I think a good gravy is like a real skill to make for one, but I hate it when people are stingy with it. It's a real peeve of mine if I go to a restaurant and they've been stingy with the gravy. So lots of gravy on my roast dinner.
I think, Miss Powett, that's got to be my favourite question. As a northerner also, that's got to be my favourite question I've ever seen. That's fantastic. We've also, have you ever had, I don't know if you want to share this with us, any cooking disasters?
Yeah, lots. Especially look, we all make mistakes, it's just the other day I was doing an event and we completely overcooked these eggs, little quail's eggs that we were doing. Let's just put them in the bin. We're only human. We all make mistakes. We have disasters every day. It's not about making a mistake. It's how you sort of deal with it and move on from it and try and rectify the situation as quickly as possible is what we look for.
So you'd say resilience is actually a really good skill to have if you're going to go into this sector, to be able to kind of take the downs and see the positives from them.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got it.
That's fab. So I like this one. Are you going to try your own mac and cheese? We know you've not had breakfast.
Maybe I'll rewarm it around lunchtime, and it's a bit early for me to be tucking into mac and cheese at the minute, to be honest.
It won't get wasted. It won't get wasted.
No, it won't go wasted. No, someone will eat it.
Have you got? Listen, we've had a few times funny stories. What's the funniest story you've had in the kitchen, or any famous?
Put me on the spot there, to be honest. Not nothing really that I can share at this platform, I don't think. Yeah, no. I mean, yes. I mean, look, we have a laugh every day. I couldn't tell you one specific thing that's really made me laugh, but we have a good working environment, and we take what we do very seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. We have a laugh with each other. We have a good working environment, and yeah.
We're getting to the hard-hitting questions here now. Cream before jam, or jam before cream on a scone?
Jam before cream. I'm getting a bit of luck here, but it makes more sense to me. The jam's thicker, and then you can put the cream on top.
Fantastic. And as we're kind of coming towards the end of the session, if you were a young person watching this today now, what would be the three bits of advice that you would like to give those young people if they want to become the next Tom Barnes, if they want to follow down in your route?
Just things we've sort of spoke about, really. Just show enthusiasm when you first start, willingness to learn, and really just put yourself, give it everything you've got. Find a restaurant. There's so many different restaurants out there now, different styles. Find a style that you're interested in, that you want to do, and then stick with the same chef for a while. There's too many people these days who'll come in and they'll go to a restaurant to get 6 months on the CV and move on. You can't take in everything that restaurant's got to offer in 6 months. So find a place, really look into it, do some different trials, go into kitchens and see where you think you'd fit in and where you think you would enjoy working, and then spend a decent amount of time in there and learn from the chef. And then, after a few years, then, start to look somewhere else and go maybe look at a different style, and eventually you'll pick out the best bits that you'd like from every restaurant, and you'll come up with your own style. And then, just, at the start, I know it's easier said than done, but don't work for money at the start. You've got to really love, don't get me wrong, we obviously all pay a fair wage, but some people, if you're working for money, I just think it's a bad thing in any job. Find something that you love, and this is in a career in general, but regardless if it's a kitchen, find something that you love doing, that you'll be passionate about, and do that. Eventually you'll become really good at what you're doing, and you'll progress quickly as well. If it's something you're passionate about, something you love doing, you become really good really quick, and then the money and stuff will come at a time. But to begin with, just find something that you love doing, and that's in anything, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's in a kitchen, anything, something you're interested in, try and do that, you know. That's what I would say.
That's just great general advice. If you find something that you're passionate about, it doesn't become a career or a chore to work, does it? It's almost like your hobby as such, that you're doing something
exactly.
so much. Excellent. It's a good one just come in. If you were not a chef, what other role would you be? What other job would you like?
I don't know. I'd probably just do, like I always say, I'd like to do something where I can just be on my own, like maybe shelf stacking in a supermarket at night or something, just be on my own and not be around too many people. I'm a bit of a recluse, but yeah, that's probably what I'd do.
Wouldn't be interested in doing front of house in hospitality?
No. Not
at
all. Not even remotely.
Good question come in here. Again, a lot of young people on here from all over the country. If you wanted to eat in a Michelin star restaurant, to try it, to see what it's like, but it's quite expensive and maybe difficult to get a table, are there ways around that for young people?
Yeah, I mean, like, look at a lot of Michelin star restaurants offer a lunch menu, like a much cheaper price, and you know, that's a good way to get in, like especially sort of midweek and that, where they might be struggling to get covers in. They'll offer deals and stuff like that. So I'd look into that, like what restaurants are offering lunch menus, and you know, you'll get a real sort of taste of what the restaurant's about there as well. And you'll get it for a good deal. There'll be there's still now quite a few Michelin star restaurants that will run like free courses for about 30 odd quid or so.
Oh, and one just come in. When you apply for a job within the hospitality and catering industry, what would be the best skill to have in an interview?
Again, just a willingness to learn. Just, you know, just have a general good attitude. Like the skills, like cooking, it's not that difficult. It's not. The basics are quite easy to pick up, and then you grow from there. But again, it's just all about that sort of just showing interest. You know, that's it. That's all we ever look for in a young person coming in, that they're passionate, they want to do this, and we will try and give you the skills that you need to do it. But just like, it's all about having that good attitude at the start. You know, don't be blasé. When we were advertising for the first academy, I remember there was a few people who were like, just so blasé and just didn't really seem to care, and they didn't end up coming to work with us. It was the people that were there. You know, they were smart. They were on time. They were asking questions, and you know, the people who were showing that, yeah, this really means something to them. That's all I'd say.
That's great. And so all of today has been about next steps for young people, where they can go and to further their career in hospitality and catering. What's next for you, Tom? What would you like to do next?
I've got some things coming up in partnership with Simon that I can't say too much about, but I'm very excited about. That's going to be happening later this year.
So we just need to keep an eye out for that. We need to keep looking out for that. That's fantastic. So we'll have to come back and do another session with you and cook something else to find out
anytime
what those are.